Today we are going to be talking about a question that is very overlooked. Who ruins games? Is it the developers or is it the community? Well, today I answer that question by looking at two very different developer companies. One will be Blizzard Entertainment's game, Overwatch 1 and 2, comparing both the developing mistakes and the positives. I will also be comparing the community's flaws and strengths, aka the good and the bad. Developer 2 will be Behavior's game, Dead by Daylight, a very known horror game. I will be going in depth about the developing team's choices, the good, the bad, and the mid. I will also be focusing on how the community acts on both sides, killer and survivor. Get some popcorn ready while I get you hooked onto the reality of game development. It's time to get on our quest to find the answer. We will start with Blizzard Entertainment. Let's jump straight into the great debate of 5 versus 5 or 6 versus 6. I will be talking about the positives and negatives of 5 versus 5 and what the devs did right. One of the things 5 versus 5 devs did right is with basic heroes. That's right, I think the Overwatch devs did a great job on hero design, way better than they did in Overwatch 1. Another big positive that 5 versus 5 brought is quicker queue times for all roles, except tank. Something Blizzard done that was good is bring the game out for players to try out for free. This is a double-edged sword, though, as it did allow loads of cheaters into the game. I still think it was a great decision to spread Overwatch to others without them emptying their pockets. Let's get into the negatives. Tank gameplay. The only people who play tank in OW2 are the mentally insane. That's right, once a beloved role has gone down the drain, as it is Counterwatch Simulator. A good old game of rock, paper, scissors. This is an opinion, but who thought of the idea of role passives? I personally think it's awful for the game foundation. A game that was once a risk and reward turned into brain rot simulator. Just look at J3's pulse bombs. In a serious note, who misses the if you play awful, you get punished? When abilities like Life Grip was not in the game, where you hit asleep on Ana and Kiriko, just teleports and cleanses the sleep and gives him immortality. I don't mind the cleanse, but immortality, have we not learned from BAP? Let's get into something that I think needs worked. Skill-based matchmaking. That's right. Who would have guessed that the gold in Overwatch 1 would reach GM in Overwatch 2 as the broken rank seasons in the start of Overwatch 2? Now they did do a good reset, and I will give them their flowers. But we would rather have the number system back. It was so satisfying seeing that number go higher and higher. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Blizzard's confused, they are clueless on what they want. Are they going for a competitive game, or are they going for a fun, relaxed game? We need answers. Blizzard time to put the nail into 5 versus 5, where they promised us PvE in 2019. That is right, PvE, the whole point of Overwatch 2. But they scrapped it. Now I think the worst thing they did was promise it, worked on it for years. Meanwhile, Overwatch gets abandoned instead of balancing the game out by nerfing Brig the Demon of Overwatch 1 and BAP a hero that out-heals every support and can out-damage most of the damage roll and provide God mode for teammates. Meanwhile, having a self-heal ability and jump to get out of any sticky situation. Let's get into the next topic, 6 versus 6 positives and negatives. Let's start with positives as mentioned previously, the risk and reward feeling in the game. You ever play Overwatch 1 and actually felt like you had value? Or your amazing play as Reinhardt of Shattering 6? How about playing DPS and being able to kill a tank with great decision-making and positioning? Or how about when they can counter-pick you and you still have a chance of winning? You ever had a Widow destroy your backline from across the map and you just sit there like a duck in 5 versus 5 as tank? Because you have to take all the damage, but in 6 versus 6, you can have a rain to push cart. Meanwhile, your DVA, the second tank, can push up and not kill Widow, but maybe apply pressure. Negatives. The metas, Moth meta, Double Shield, Goats. Do we remember these metas? How about how miserable it felt playing against them? Well, let's get into it. What caused the downfall of the game? Well, it's the developers on this one. I won't get into the forcing metas and power creep. Let's get into how they nerfed Brig 26 times, and she was still on top. Or how about when the reworked Mercy and gave her Valk with the ability to insta-res multiple times. You get that fight-winning pick with a great Hanzo arrow, all for it to be deleted like that. The negative of 6 versus 6 wasn't the format, but was game balancing, as the developers were. Like a child playing with the shaped toy trying to fit a triangle into square. A circle into a triangle, you get the point. I personally believe in the ability of this current developing team in 2024 can make 6 versus 6 work. But in the end, Blizzard killed Overwatch 1 because they're so slow in putting content out, did not communicate with the fan base, and overall left a game everyone loved to rot. 2019, 2020, 2021, Blizzard developers destroyed Overwatch. But that doesn't mean the community is off the hook. Now that we got the great debate on Blizzard Entertainment about 5 versus 5 and 6 versus 6 developing issues, let's dig into the community's issues and how the community takes part of Overwatch's greatest fails. Let's first dig into some of the great things the Overwatch community has given us all. Let's start with content creation. We all know and love our creators. Some creators like Flats, Samito, G's Raider, ML7, J3, and Among has given a lot of great memories and are all very different in their content creation ways. Let's start with how positive Among is. He gives a great outlook on how even through the worst of the worst, that you can always bring a bit of positivity. Let's now look into my favorite console content creator, G's Raider, as he has always been very blunt about how he feels about the game. He is passionate about the console community and Overwatch as a company. Let's dive into his content on why he is as he exposes the toxic of toxic players in the game's communities. Let's be real, we all had that annoying Reinhardt who pins across the map like a complete moron just to get mad at the support player for not keeping him alive. Don't think you got away scotch-free ego support players, as there have been countless times where a Mercy player will cry and whine about how their tank keeps dying when their support comp is Mercy. Zen, before you complain about your tank, please, try the following. Switching to a support like Vap, Ana, Kiriko, Moira. Where you going, mister? I have 12 deaths, and I need healing Genji. I got news for you. If you complain about not getting healed, please look behind you. Maybe get in line of sight with your support, or just look at them and help them as they get lubed up by their Tracer Sombra Winston combo. Let's talk about the one-trick situation. Yes, my Roadhog abusers and my poor Reinhardts. And how about those Mercies? I don't ever want to hear a single one of you blame your team for a lost ever, as you are putting yourself in a disadvantage by only playing one character in a game that sadly requires you to counter-swap. If you want to be competitive, switch characters. If not, completely fine. It's a game after all. But you have zero rights to be mad at your team. Throwers, let's be real. The moment someone gets blamed for a poor choice, they get mad and throw. If you tell them to swap, they get mad. If you correct them for saying you did nothing, they will cry and scream, proven by many creators' videos. They will purposely lose games just to feel better about their small. Let me stop there. As McCree once said, there is the bad, there is the good, and there is the ugly, and these throwers are the equivalent of AL Wheezy. As they sit there in their gaming chair that smells like Roadhogs, ball sweat, yelling at you. Typing Andy's also known as broke. These kind of players will lose one fight and decide I'ma blame my tank, DPS, support, and get into a fight by typing all game by calling some trash losing the game because he hasn't left spawn, and then after the game blames the players for throwing. People like this are like that Patrick and Ray man scene from SpongeBob when he tried to turn in the wallet, and dude said it wasn't his. Meanwhile, his ID was in the wallet type of people. This is just a little of what a normal Overwatch game goes like. The community is toxic. Please fix yourself, guys. Be more positive. I left out the slur abusers and the racist, homophobic people. But you got the message right. Now that we got Blizzard's argument out the way, I have came to the conclusion that Overwatch was slaughtered by the developers 75% of the time. The community has ruined it about 25% of the time. If you disagree with this, let me know in the comments. I am always open to feedback and have an open mind. Now, does that mean every game is like this? Absolutely not. There are many situations and contexts that plays a part of the downfall of games. Let's move on to the second, developer behavior. Now, behavior is something I have a very different opinion on. My opinion of behavior is that the developer. Right now, this current team in 2024 saved their reputation in game. Back when Dead by Daylight first came out, on June 16, 2016, it was very buggy and had a lot of game mechanics that made the game unplayable. Let's fast forward into 2023, where the most hated killer was released of all time in DBD, the Skull Merchant. The Skull Merchant had one of the worst mechanics ever. You would be able to place drones and completely deny a section of the map. Now in a game where you have to go around all of the map to do generators, this ability quickly reshaped the meta to never chasing survivors and just holding the players hostage. As you can tell, this wasn't a very fun time for survivor players. So there is one mistake behavior had made. Let's go to what they did right. Not only did they listen to their players and attempted to fix Skull Merchant, they did make a change where they nerfed Killer's perk that would make generators lose progress really fast. They would release great patches that would switch up the meta and release really cool killers like Ghostface, Chucky, Michael Myers, the Alien, Freddy Krueger, and most recently, Vecna, a Dungeons & Dragons character. Not only are they releasing great killers, they also are adding cool survivors to go with them like Laurie from Halloween, Steve and Nancy and Meg from Stranger Things. Who can forget about the goofiest actor, Nicolas Cage, or even Alan Wake? Yes, this game added some crazy collabs. So that gives me the idea that this development team has been killing it, and there is very few to talk bad about this company, from my experience. Now that we talked about a broken killer, let's move on to toxic survivors, broken perks they had, and toxic killer players. This will be the main topic of why I think this community has their ups and downs. Let's talk about a killer's worst nightmare. Dead Hard now. Dead Hard before the nerf to it was an ability that you can use to take a hit and not die. As we all know, in Dead by Daylight, you get 2 times before you enter the dying stage where you get carried to a hook. Well, if you run Dead Hard, you will be able to take a hit if you had good reflexes whenever you are injured, so you can do this 10 times in a game if you wanted to. The good development team noticed and nerf it where you only use it 2 times. Let's get into another perk for survivors, Made for This. Now, Made for This is completely fine in my books for perks, but there is an argument that it's broken. Made for This would give you a 3% speed boost while you were injured. Yes, I think we could have tuned it a bit. But instead, they sort of nuked the perk in my opinion. So I give this change a mid-change. How I would have fixed it is if you are on second hook, you can have a speed boost when you get injured just to provide more survivability in the game. Toxic community and why I think they ruin the game more than developers. Whether you play killer or survivor, being toxic is never okay. As someone who'd been held hostage by my own survivors when I first learned the game, it ruined it for me. I was getting spammed on hook. There will be people who make friends with the killer and have a hitman and kill other survivors. There's also the streamers. Not all of them are bad, but the ones I experienced have been awful. These people will go down instantly and will leave the game, making it harder to win. Another good dev fix was they added bots that were pretty good, but obviously would rather have a real person. Survivors would blow up skill checks, body block you, throw pallets to get you killed, etc. Killer's toxicity time. Now, in my opinion, there's only a few things that killers can be toxic about, because the survivors have imaginary rule books how to play. The only issues I run into have been tunneling, which I call playing for a win.
I have to do
but still
something
sucks,
that
though. And
might
face
be
camping,
toxic,
which completely ruins my mood for the game. Now, the devs have tried to fix this, and I will give props for that, but it still occurs.
Actually, I'm not mad at
Dev
you.
time for the conclusion of today's video. With Blizzard's opinion was being 75% fault and 25% community's fault, and behaviors being 65% community's fault and 35% devs' fault. My answer will be that, depending on the context, both take massive rules to ruin a game. Thank you for watching. If you made it to the end, comment your fav DBD killer and our hero. Hope you guys have a great day.